All right, welcome back to the show. Today I've got my friends Josh and Michelle Walters. They are actually out of Ohio. It's another investor group out of Ohio. They're in self-storage, I believe multifamily, maybe some single family as well, and eager to learn a little bit more about them. Josh and Michelle, welcome to the show.
How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having us, John.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So why don't you guys give us a little bit about yourselves. Michelle, if you want to start, and then Josh, you can go after her, and just give us a quick bio about you guys.
So both of us used to work at a Honda plant together when we first got married. I quit after we had our daughter and signed up, went to nursing school, did home health, and kind of worked for a managed care payer like an insurance company for the last 10 years, split into half, just a lot of hours at first with home health, kind of got sick of it and got lucky enough to get a remote job working at home. So we started kind of venturing off to see what we could get into as far as real estate goes. My family is into single family, pretty big. So they were kind of hounding us for a while to get started on it. And we went ahead and took the jump and did it. So that's where we started. Everything kind of branched into storage eventually after that. Not really a boredom thing. It's just a growth thing, something different to try, something more interesting to learn. And that's where we ended up as far as now. We have 3 kids. Everything is going great. So it worked out pretty good.
That's awesome. Josh, what's I know you were just working, you just quit your 9 to 5, right? What's Michelle told us a little bit about your story, but what's your story?
Yeah, man, I'm a welder by trade. I started welding hydraulic cylinders for your big tractor companies, Case, JLG, John Deere, that whole thing. Did that for a few years. And then like Michelle said, we started at a Honda plant. I worked in the R&D facility at the Honda plant, basically welding concept cars that were 4, 6, 8 years out in the making before anyone's seen anything. So I did that for 14 years. After that, I went to The Ohio State University. I taught some welding there. I was also a building director there for 3.5 years. I just recently walked away from there July last year, 2023.
That's awesome.
And yeah, here we are.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, and I kind of forgot that, Michelle, it's your family, right? Your mom that has single family rentals.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's that look like? And how did they, I guess, convince you to come over to the dark side and start investing?
It's a lot on my mom's side as far as my grandparents goes to. They're in their 80s. Grandpa's almost 90, and they have, I think, 12 or 15. My aunt and uncle, which is my mom's brother, they also have a pile of single family. My mom and stepdad have, I think they're around 40 some properties. Wow. And then they started dabbling into VRBO. So that it kind of just the growth of what they are in the middle of is pretty fascinating to see. So they were like, oh, well, you gotta start somewhere. So we ended up taking a HELOC out on our house in 2016 and bought our first duplex for crazy cheap. It was like not even $14,000 at that time.
Wow.
Yeah, so when you could buy houses cheap back then.
Yeah. And that's local where you guys are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Like 10 minutes from us. Yeah. All of ours are in town. So yeah, they're all super close. So yeah, more or less just seeing what they've done and how everything's going with them. And we had to start somewhere.
So how did that happen? Because you said you took a HELOC out and you got a duplex for $14,000, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But what was the transition point where you guys were like, yeah, let's do this? Obviously it wasn't, $14,000 is still a lot of money, right? But it wasn't like, I guess today, where to find a duplex anywhere, you're probably at least 6 figures. So what was the turning point where it's like, all right, let's get into this. Let's see what happens here.
So at that point, he was still working at the factory in R&D and had a set schedule as far as hours go because he was up in the front. So he had a good schedule. I was doing home health, which 5, 6, 7 days a week. The weekends still were pretty flexible and easy. I'd only go out for a few hours. It was just a lot of, we did not do anything family wise. We didn't go camping. We didn't get to leave the house and do vacations. The kids were still young, but we literally just worked all the time, which just wears you down eventually and burns you out. So we finally went ahead and checked in on getting this HELOC for our house because we had paid it down pretty good. And we ended up with twice as much as what we thought we would get. So we ended up buying 2 houses with that, the 1 duplex and another house. So it kind of just worked out to where there was no reason for us not to do it. We had this money sitting here just wasting away, had to put it to work. So we just started doing that.
Yeah. HELOCs are so powerful and I think underrated. And it kills me when guys like, not that he'll ever listen to this show, but like Grant Cardone, like all these, gurus talk about how your house is not an asset. Well, if you treat it right, it is. That's exactly how I got started, was with a HELOC. I would not have gotten into real estate or rental real estate without a HELOC on our house. Right. And that took a little bit of time to build some equity by paying down the loan. And then, house went up, appreciated. That takes some time. But yeah, how else? I mean, what's your guys' thoughts on HELOCs?
It worked perfect for us. And we held that, I think it was like 55 grand. So it wasn't a massive amount, but for the area we're in, that was good enough to get us what we wanted or needed, I guess. So we would pay that down. I had switched jobs at that point to where I started working remote and we got the rentals. So we were working on rentals and rehabbing those and then going camping with the kids, like everything started to pivot at that point as soon as we got that HELOC. So that helped us get the first, 3 tenants, what you would say. And then we didn't pay that off until like when all the rates dropped 2-3 years ago, we actually did a cash out refi on our house, paid that HELOC off and got it locked in for like 2.87 for 30 years. And we bought 3 more houses with the remaining cash out refi. So it was like, we paid an extra $200 a month from what we were paying to begin with for our house, but we bought 3 more rentals in the process. And then we stopped and went to storage, but it's all paid for by rentals. So it doesn't, It was no brainer.
Yeah. Yeah. You said, well, in a way it's kind of like buying houses on a credit card. But you've got an asset that should be going up in value, right? And your rates are a lot less too using the HELOC compared to a credit card.
Right. The cash flow is awesome.
Yeah. So was the goal for freedom?
Yes.
Absolutely. That's why we're doing what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So around when do you think that set in? Like it sounds like 16 is when you guys started. Did it set in like right away? Like, okay, we can do this to gain our freedom.
A dream maybe that we knew would never happen, or we thought we knew would never happen. We're like, oh, we're going to quit our jobs someday.
Yeah, we looked at it, with the housing, and it was just like, it didn't seem like it was moving fast enough. I mean, yeah, it got us some, some extra cash flow, but it just wasn't moving us, quickly like we wanted to be, or, how we wanted to go. So that's why we decided to pivot into the storage area.
Yeah. And that was in 21?
22.
20, yeah.
22. Yeah.
So we got the first one. Well, 21 is when we started trying to figure all this out. I think that's when I had first contacted you because you were local, and I was so tickled that somebody normal was close to us. And I was like, oh, we can just go talk to him. So yeah, it took us, I don't know, probably close to a year to actually lock one up and get it figured out, which took us too long because I just dug into everything too far to try to have it figured out, or we would have been on it a lot sooner.
We tend to overanalyze a lot. So
you say that though, and I don't want to get back to something else you guys said, but you say that, but a year of educating to me is not I mean, you took action, right? Well, you already had taken action because you had some single family rentals. So yeah, to me, a year is not that long at all. And you guys, I know you guys are also looking during that time too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But so it sounds like about 6 years, and then you're like, all right, 5, 6 years. Then you're like, all right, single family rentals are not going to get us the freedom that we want. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you guys look at other asset classes, or was it like, storage is it?
We looked into multi, but it was just like, we didn't want to deal with the rental with the single family on a bigger scale, basically. So it was just like, storage was it for us,
Yep. But you guys still have your single families, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. We have all of them.
Do you guys self-manage?
Yes.
Talk a little bit about, because you guys are in a smaller town. What's population? It's under 10,000?
Yeah, about 10,000.
So talk about investing in that type of market, single family, and we'll get into storage eventually, but specifically single family.
It seems to be pretty easy as far as the town that we're in. It just so happens that we live in a county south of it that, I mean, the prices are probably quadruple what you're going to pay in this town 10 minutes away. So with it being that demographic, it's easier to lock those up. Now, of course, they've went up in the last couple years. Everything has. But I mean, for us to go look at a house and it was 20 grand and we knew we'd put 20 grand into it, it was just like, no, we don't want it. We'd go to the next one. So for a while there, it was killer. And that's how like my mom and, grandparents, my uncle have the portfolio that they do because they're buying them cash. They're still buying them. And it's easy. Some are on owner finance. I mean, most of them are cash. But they've just built that so much that they can do that. And then they're, depending on your age range, like the area of life that they're in, they don't want to deal with financing stuff out or worry about the growth. They don't really need to do it. It's more or less just an option for them, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And we'll get there someday. It's just, this is how we had to take that path. But yeah, it's just a different area. So it's hard to gauge it with people that are, towards Columbus, even that you're spending a few $100 grand. And we're like, well, no.
So it sounds like you're buying them for around 20 and then putting 20 into them. Is that right? On average?
We did our first, I really got into Bigger Pockets like crazy for a while there. And that's how I ended up coming across storage was on there. I think it was like Paul Moore or something that I had heard talk. And I called and actually talked to him one day. He called me back when he was going to the grocery store and talked to me. And I was like, I expected an assistant, not you, to actually call me. He's like, you call me anytime you have questions. So it was pretty cool to get to talk to him. But yeah, he had filled us in on commercial in general of how that asset goes. So for a while there, we were probably 3 houses. We did the whole Burr method thing. And the first one I told him, I was like, listen, we're going to buy this house for 20 grand. We're going to redo everything, get it rented out. And I'm going to go to the bank and refinance it. And he was like, great. We're taking out a loan on something instead of just letting the cash ride. But it appraised for 95 grand and we got it back. We spent 20 cash and then we spent 22 putting into it. And then it appraised for 95. And I was like, no way, this works. You're kidding me. And it rents for $900 right now. And my payment is $397.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's like, we did it again. And then we did it again. So that's really when we started utilizing that is when we started being able to pay ourselves back. We were buying, we had a good chunk of money on some credit cards. We were just using those 0% interest. I'd have no cash flow and pay them off, over the next year for $1,000, $2,000 a month. And we were cash poor besides having our jobs. So we knew that it would just take forever. So we started cash out refiing like crazy. And I think we did 5 plus our house, our home in 6 months. And we were done after that. That was it. And then it went to storage. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like the way the reason why I keep kind of digging in on that is because I do think One, I think, in my opinion, I want to hear your guys' opinion. I think single family is probably the safest real estate asset class as far as it's not going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And they're also not building affordable housing.
Right.
I like that. And to compare to storage, someone could build right next to us a storage facility and completely like drown the market.
Right.
Yeah.
Can't really do that with single family, at least right now. So what's your guys' thoughts on? Obviously, it's single family is more of a grind, and you've got to build probably more teams, more systems, more day-to-day stuff. But talk about the pros and cons really quick about single family.
What's yours on this? He's the manual labor.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, that's why I want to get out of it, man. Just literally last week, I sat in a basement with a company that we had a sewer drain leaking, and the sewer drain went inside of the block wall in the basement. And it was like, I got quotes of 12, 14 grand to pull the block wall down and fix the pipe. And I'm just like, yeah, no. I thought about doing it myself, and I'm just like, no, there's gotta be an alternative. So I found a company out of Mansfield that actually does relining. So they actually came in the basement and relined that pipe for $2,500.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I sat in the basement and watched them do it. So it's a pretty cool process. And, they didn't tear the wall out, and, it's fixed. But yeah, tenants, toilets, and trash, man, I wanted out of that.
Yep.
So that's, our plan is to get rid of them at some point and, be 100% storage, just because I don't want to deal with the headache anymore. But right now where we're at, we've got good tenants. They're a little bit older, they're not going anywhere. They're not tearing anything up. But, I still get the occasional, drain is acting up, or, just little stupid stuff that I just don't want to deal with anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and let me ask you this, and I'm just thinking through this live as well. We're not live, we're recording.
Yeah.
But just thinking through this, is it tougher how many single family houses do you need to hire that out to where you're not dealing with the day to day? Any idea?
Yeah, I wouldn't have a clue, honestly.
The bad thing with us is that they're so close and convenient, and it's easy stuff to deal with, that we haven't had that issue. And we have 2 duplexes and 6 single families. So we have 10 tenants.
And the furthest house is 20 minutes away too. So, I mean,
he's a maintenance guy anyway. He actually changed on New Year's Eve. He sent me a text and he's like, hey, I changed out the hot water heater, and sent me a picture of it. He's like, it was leaking and I just wanted to take care of it. And I'm like, you don't have to I will pay you to do, you don't have to. And he's like, oh no, I probably changed out 4 of them yesterday, because he does maintenance on apartment complexes. So he's like, oh, you guys are great landlords. I don't have any issues. He's like, I just figured I'd help you out. I'm like, man.
If the tenants could all be like that, it would be easy.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, we don't have, it's just another thing to disrupt the day. It's not that we don't like them, or, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, because I'm not the one doing as much as he does. I just deal with the people. But they're not bad enough to be like, man, I hate this. I wish I wouldn't have done it. This sucks.
Yeah.
They're consistent. They're all pretty pleasant. We've only had 1 eviction that went to court since 2016. So I can't complain. It's just that random, I need this fixed right now. That disrupts a schedule or disrupts a day that I think I have a free flow for, and then lose it. So that's pretty much the only headache that it causes. They're safe, they're consistent, but annoying.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's a great way to put it. And like we had similar paths. I mean, I had 4 single family rentals and it wasn't going fast enough. Same amount of time. It was like 5 years into it. And I'm like, this couldn't take me forever, for one. And I didn't know it at the time, but I like looking back, I'm like, okay, I see why people jump from residential to commercial, whether it's storage or something else, is just because once you get to a bigger asset class, you're able to build those systems and hire the people to where you don't have to deal with the day to day. And obviously storage is an easy example there, to where you have to do that. Plus you don't have probably a lot of commercial. You don't have the day to day of, oh, my toilet's leaking or not working, and someone's got to get out there right away. Right. Residential, someone's living there. Like, you have to do everything right away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's more of an emergency.
Yep.
So 2021, you found storage. You kind of told us how you did that. What happened next? You talked to Paul Moore, started looking, educating. What was that process like?
A long process. I kind of held it in for probably at least a good few months or so and didn't even tell him. I wanted to have it all figured out and planned out so that I could be like, listen, this is freaking awesome. This is what we're doing next, without him being like, you're nuts. We ain't doing it.
You're figuring out your sales pitch to your husband.
Yeah. Because it's a big move. That's a lot of, that's a lot of zeros compared to what we were used to. It's with our residential, it's such a small market. So it's like having to learn all of this all over again. And we were content with what we knew with rehabs. We did all of it on our own. We took the kids and did that all in the evening and would come home, go to bed, do it again the next day after school. It just sucked.
Young kids. They were young at the time.
Year, 2 years.
You said they were helping?
Sometimes,
yeah.
I mean, helping make a mess maybe, but it kept them occupied while we were there.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure too, and not to compare, but my parents built houses, spec homes growing up, and I remember that. I remember the grind. I'm sure your kids are seeing that and saw the grind, and if anything, while you didn't like it, I'm sure it was valuable lessons, whether you were actually teaching them or just showing them the struggle. Like, I'm sure there are a ton of lessons for them.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like, listen, this is why we're doing this, because now we have that option. Now neither one of us have to work. Like, it just takes time and it's work. But as far as getting into storage, I mean, that took a little bit. And like I said, I kind of beat the hell out of everything, figuring it out before I just want to make sure, that it's the right decision. So just kind of being anal about it, I guess. But I had, mentioned it to him and showed him some stuff and tried to, at first he was just not a podcast guy. I'm like, bigger pockets. And he's like, I don't know how you can sit there and listen to people talk all day. So it was like, and then he started, listening to a couple of them and understanding what all was going on. And then actually, I think the pivot point, I could have talked for the next few years and him still not understand what I was, or not really understand, but maybe not believe the process until we met with you at one of the facilities. And then as soon as we left there, he was just like, that was totally not what I expected, down to earth, awesome guy to talk to. Just, it was easy to relate and compare, experiences, and to see you go through it and know that it was an easy leap to get to that next point was great. So that, I think that was probably the pivotal moment, really, of we're actually going to do this now.
Yeah, I did get a ton out of that. I got a ton out of that meeting we had, man. It was just like, yeah, we can do this, after hearing your story and everything. It's like, you guys got more than I had when I started and that kind of thing. It's just like, yeah, okay, let's do this.
Yeah. Well, one, I appreciate that. And I can absolutely relate too, because I remember, and actually so I'll back up. I think I found this guy on Bigger Pockets, same as, you guys digging through Bigger Pockets, and he was local. And then he started, I'm trying to remember. I feel like we met at maybe a BP startup. Like, this is, I don't even know, 15, 16 probably. And we had one lunch together, and then we kind of stayed in contact, and he's local to Columbus. We stayed in contact through texting. And then one day, I think I reached out to him. He's like, yeah, I'm leaving my 9 to 5. I think he went from single family to multifamily, but I'm like, and looking back, I don't know if I realized it then. I'm like, wow, this is actually possible. Someone I know that actually quit their 9 to 5 and gained freedom through rental real estate. Like, it's real. And like, looking back, that was probably a turning point for me. It's when you meet somebody and you realize they're real and they're not, and he's probably smarter than me, but I'm not saying he's, he's a smart guy, but it's like, he's not doing all that much greater things than I am. Right. Mm-hmm. It just normalizes things. It's like, okay, I can do this. And then you just take off from there. So I could completely relate to that. That's why it's important to network and get out and talk to people.
Absolutely.
So from there you start looking at deals. educating? How'd that look?
It was interesting. I cold call. I was in home health. Like I can walk into anyone's door and have a conversation and just kind of mesh well with how their living goes. So to pick up the phone and call somebody was just like having to call a doctor's office. Like it just didn't matter to me. So I would kind of zoom around on Google Maps and, oh, I like where this one is. So I'd start calling them. At one point, which one of them we own now, that was our first deal. We had 3 of them that we were trying to decide which ones to do, just beating the death out of them, which we should have taken down all 3. So I'm like, well, we can't afford all of them. We have to pick one. So naturally, we picked the one that was owner finance because that was the easiest route. Mm-hmm. So, we would go and meet with these owners and then, chat with them back and forth. And a couple of them would just tell you straight up on the phone, like, yeah, we're ready to sell. Let's, just come over and meet us at the property and we'll walk around, talk. And that's how we ended up with all 3 of them literally at the same time. So just slowly, one at a time, we kind of weeded out different things that we didn't like. Either it was the price and the location. One of them was kind of rural. The other one was right behind a gas station. So we knew we were going to run into an issue with phase 1 or hopefully not phase 2, but we didn't know. So yeah, the easiest one we just took down as an owner finance that was right on the outside of town and it's holding its own pretty well. So.
Do you think, so you guys have you done any mailers or is it all calling?
No, mailers I call them first and then I mail them something if I talk to them. If it's one I want bad enough, I will still send them a letter just in case.
Yeah.
Don't always get an answer, but that's how I ended up getting the second one. It was under an LLC. I had no phone number. I had to mail them a letter. Yeah. And that worked out perfect because they called 2 days later.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you're following up, which most people don't. Do you think there's like an advantage of you calling over Josh?
Sometimes it depends on the person that answers. I get a lot of women. Some of them not so nice. Maybe it's the competition thing.
Yeah.
Some of them are, which we bring into this at the rentals too, because it's always me having to call like, hey, I need a bid for this, or hey, I had a guy tell me one time that this porch on this $20,000 house that we bought, the same one I told you about, the refi, he's like, oh, well, this is probably going to cost about 15, 20 grand. It was literally like an 8-foot porch.
Yeah, it was tiny.
Thinking I was completely ignorant. And I said, no, we're on 2 different realms here. This is just not going to fly. And he's like, well, do you want to talk to your husband about it and then see if we can meet up? And I was like, nope, we're done. It pissed me off something fierce that he just automatically assumed that I was stupid. Like, we're a team. We do this together. Obviously, I know what's going on. So a lot of the owners that I talk to are very nice. I never have anybody cuss me out. The biggest issue I may run into is they're just kind of short with me. But I kind of feel like for the most part, it's not much of a difference, maybe, except for I'm just used to talking to people. I talk too much. So sometimes I can keep them on the phone because I'm like, oh, okay, well, we live here, and I call everybody that's local so I can relate to the area they're in. So then I'll just have conversation to keep them on the phone, like, oh yeah, well, the weather sucks today. We got a ball game, blah, blah, blah. Just something dumb to let them understand I'm just a normal person that's an hour from you,
that lives down the road.
Yeah. So I don't know if Josh isn't as patient, I don't think, as I am to try to finagle my way in there. He'd just be like, all right, whatever, later.
Right. Well, and I think you're right. I think unfortunately, there's some disadvantages because there are some people out there that are like, well, because she's a female, she doesn't know what she's talking about, which obviously is not true. Right. But I also think it can be, and I've seen it happen where for whatever reason, just breaks down doors easy. Like people are more eager to talk, maybe not eager to talk, but willing to talk on the phone to a female versus a male. Maybe because there's more male cold callers. I have no idea. But yeah, it seems like, I don't know, just conversations that I've had, it's kind of somewhat of an advantage having the female call.
Meeting people after the phone call is huge for us, man. It's just like, they might be a little standoffish at first on the phone, but whenever you actually have that face-to-face meeting, the walls come down and they're like, hey, they realize we're just regular people like you, and they have a conversation. So it's just.
Which is a good thing with us being only kind of chasing Ohio. So even though we stay kind of out of your realm, because the areas that you're in, we're not used to. We live in the country, like we're more rural, and then we go to the lake, all summer long. So we kind of focus in a different area anyway, which works out great. But it kind of just depends. I think everybody chases a certain area, maybe a little different than someone else would. Or
everyone's buy box is different, right?
Yep. And that's a great point. That's knowing your buy box is super important. And there's some people that buy nationwide, right? And they're just throwing thousands of letters out there and hopefully something gains traction. We're hunting with sniper rifles, right? We know what facilities we like. We know the markets we like, and we just keep following up with the same ones. It's can be a slower game, but you're also building relationships, and can also be somewhat of an easier game. It's a cheaper game too, because you're not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing.
Focused.
Yeah. So walk us through that first deal.
He had owned that,
right? This is only 2 years ago.
Yeah, 22. Yeah.
So we're actually due for a refi, to finance him out here shortly. 10,000 square foot, 97 units. One we occupy with our camera stuff, but it's not even an acre. So it's set up kind of like a U shape on the outside, and then there's 2 30 by 100 buildings in the center. So it's packed in there quite well. Fenced, no gate. Gate's too close to the road, can't do it. So it's open all the time. He wanted 475.
Yeah.
He would not budge off that. I was like, well, whatever. We'll deal with it as long as we can get the terms. So the terms were 40 grand down, which we wrote a check out of. I mean, we had money stashed from the rental houses that just sits there and builds. So I was like, okay, write the check. 2-year term, 3.5% interest, $2,200 a month set payments. So he was only bringing in about $4 grand a month. Maybe like 38. So my reasoning to him was like, we need to at least make a few grand or so, some kind of cash flow. We needed to have a couple thousand cushion. So that was my reasoning to him as to why I didn't want to pay over $2,200 a month, which worked out great because that's what we ended up doing. And then got ESS set up on it and cameras installed. He was taking cash and checks out of an office with a different company that he owns uptown. So we, had to deal with everybody being on all different dates. One of the tenants was homeless and he just rented it to him a month before we closed. So we couldn't get a hold of him. Some of them had leases that had different names from other facilities on it, didn't have all their info, what they paid, what unit they were actually in. It was a hot mess. So it was our huge learning experience with that one for sure.
The sign they had out by the road was, I think he used a Sharpie and wrote like his phone number on it.
Yeah. That's actually how I found that one. Surprisingly, I didn't cold call him until after I drove past it. I had to go get my car was a salvage title. So I had to go get it inspected at the local, what is that, BMV or whatever.
Yeah.
And I drove past it and the sign just had the phone number and so it wasn't on Google, nothing. And I called and asked him if he wanted to sell and he's like, yeah, I could probably sell it. So we ended up meeting him after that, but it's just coincidence.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, it's funny how those things happen. So you run it with no gate. how's that been?
It's been fine. We haven't had any
Yeah.
issues. We've had 0 issues. Knock on wood.
Yeah. The only issues we had right off the bat, right when it was the first weekend we had the cameras installed, I had 2 separate people dump
Couches, yeah.
dump couches in this back corner inside the facility. So we had just got the cameras up, thank goodness. So I zoomed in, I could see a license plate, everything. It was our tenants. There was 2 of them in there. They pulled it out of their unit and went around the corner inside the facility, just round to the other side of the building and pushed them off the back in the dark. So I called and was like, this needs removed now, or this license plate's going to the police station. So we watched her on the cameras drag this couch across the gravel back into her unit. It was so funny. But that was the only issue we have had. We've had no break-ins. It's actually surrounded by, there's 3 nursing homes / assisted living facilities right there. And then a nice kind of build out of townhouses on the other side too. So it's a nice little area.
Nice. So do you guys do DaVinci Lock?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Not
Okay,
through
so
their system. I just have them. I just know the codes.
Yeah. So it's automated through that.
Yeah.
I've got technically 2 right now without a gate, and I see it's definitely it's 2 things. Obviously, the more, like, if you had 500 units there, it'd be tough to do DaVinci Lock, in my opinion. But the smaller ones, like the 2 that I have that are not gated yet, they're smaller. I think the one's 42 units, the other one's like 80. It's not that big of a deal to put DaVinci Locks on,
Right.
once a month. And then once, obviously, you've got the codes, right? They just, once they pay, you give them the code over the phone and they can get in.
Yep.
So it's not that big of a deal. But the more units, it becomes more of a headache. But smaller facilities, you can definitely get away with it. So you said you started at $4,000 a month in revenue, right? Gross revenue.
Yeah.
Any idea where that's at now?
We're, because we did a rent raise in December and I lost probably 12, 14 people. Like the first rent raise we did, I lost 1.
Yeah.
So this go around, which the market's crazy anyway. I knew it was going to happen, but I needed to clean house. We have some people, it's been in there 20 years. It's just, I can't continue. And I'm under the top guy anyway. So they're competition wise, we're still good. So we're, I think, just at like 80% right now because of that. It's just all winter was dead. We only had a couple move-ins at a time. It was just rough. So it finally is picking back up. So I think we've had 6 or 7 this month so far move in, and we're a little over halfway through. So we're doing good. So we're at, I think it's like 58, 6,000 a month right now as far as income goes. And we still have, a bunch of units that we can fill. So we're doing it.
No, that's awesome. Well, 2 short years, you've increased it by, I'm not going to do percentage off the top of my head, but by $2,000, 30%, right? Which is, it's awesome. So I'm assuming tenant insurance, late fees, setup fees, all that stuff.
Yep.
So obviously a home run. Do you guys, so you said you're coming up on the balloon payment with the seller.
With the remaining, I think that's we have to be financed out of that by August 1st. So we're about to go through our first.
How's that going to look? Still making money after you refi?
Yeah, we should. We should have at least 100, 200, maybe more. I'm trying to be as conservative. I'm trying to be as conservative as possible, hoping that everything goes good. It's just a small local bank that is wanting to take it down. So it'll just depend on how it goes with them. I hope it goes good. But as far as numbers and stuff go, we should have no issue with getting that financed out and still have maybe a couple $100,000 in equity to play with. So, and the payments is only going up, I think, $1,200 maybe.
That's good.
According to their terms. So we should be okay.
That's good. That's good. Well, and you guys know, but I'll say this. Whenever you get a bank loan, make sure you talk to the bank about an appraiser, because I've dealt with really, 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 really bad appraisers before. They're just like, oh yeah, we've appraised storage before. And I'm like, I'm in trouble. This is bad. You've done it before. That means absolutely nothing. they'll basically pull comps, and they'll pull them. Obviously, we're in Ohio. They'll pull them from the most random spots, and I'm like, this wasn't even listed. This was, yeah. So make sure you get and I've got one for Ohio. Well, Ohio and states surrounding. That's really good. Now you guys know who he is too.
Matt.
Yeah.
Matt Bolger.
As far
And he was on the show.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
But yeah,
it's
so important.
like, that's what I didn't know if we were able to just request a different one or not, because it's the one that they're using is pretty much just residential. It says commercial, but they seem to be very small in this area. So that was a concern for sure. So yeah, that's something that I have actually kind of lost sleep over lately.
Well, and it sounds like you have a good relationship with your bank. Obviously, you've done some rentals for them too. It sounds like I would just have a conversation with them. Like, listen, this is a storage appraiser. You're willing to pay the extra. My guess is it's probably an extra $1,000 to $2,000, maybe more. It's absolutely worth it.
Okay.
Awesome.
If it's a small community bank, I can't imagine they would fight back against that
Okay.
because they want your business too, right?
Right.
So
Awesome.
cool. So after that, you took that down in 22. What happened from there?
Ooh, we got.
You also turned it around. You've done a great job turning that facility around.
Yep, that one's kind of at its own pace right now. So just waiting to fill it back up, and it's good. So I got the itch, and we started looking. We ended up looking at another local one. The price was literally double what it should have been. It's actually still not sold, and it's been through I don't know how many wholesalers at this point. So he knows that we were interested at one point, but he kind of lost that shot because as the market went and kind of shifted, we kind of pivoted away from even caring about that one. But so we ended up running into one that we go to lake area a lot. So we were looking at some along the lake line up there. There's another facility that we've been talking to the owner for a year and a half now, and they just can't come off of it. They're in their 70s.
Upper 70s, yeah.
So that one is always on the back burner. So we started going east, like towards Cleveland direction. And I came across the second one. And that's the one that I said I had to mail it out because I couldn't figure out who the owner of the LLC was. Well, I did. I found a name, but I couldn't find a number. So I mailed them a letter. They called a couple days later and said that they had owned it for a couple years, and it was just shy of 26,000 square foot, huge property with commercial out front. Everything was empty. Not at all what we were looking for. Complete opposite of the buy box.
No.
Kind of crazy, but we went and met them and froze to death doing it because I think it was January when we did it. Walked around the facility. The facility was full of trash. It had been left that way because they told everybody they were selling and to vacate the property, and they took what they wanted and left everything else.
Jeez.
So we ended up trying to negotiate it. It was a 1.7 million, 38 acres, a mile and a half from the lake, state route, and then it intersected two more state routes. So we have wonderful area. We lost the deal. They wanted more down than we wanted to give them. And we just decided, well, that we're sticking to it. This is it. This is all we can do. This is crazy. We're going to take a lot of time getting it ramped back up and cleaned out. They called a couple weeks later, early on a Sunday morning, and said we were supposed to meet the people that were the runner, the ones that got it, this morning to sign papers on a contract. And they met us with a negotiation and price. And we left. Are you still interested? Absolutely. So he said, okay, come meet us next week and we'll talk about it. And you can talk to the owners and blah, blah, blah. So we did. We met them at a winery that they run themselves, like a little back of the shop.
Just like a little hole in the wall.
Oh my goodness. And we're, doing these wine tastings. I am a huge lightweight. I was drunk.
That was their plan.
They nailed it with their plan. Oh my goodness. He was fine. And I'm like, we're never going to, we drove in a snowstorm to get there. I mean, it was a hot mess. And we were there for probably 2-3 hours talking to them. And it was nothing about the facility. It was our life, what kind of people we are, what we're doing, what our plans were. And then after I'm 3 sheets to the wind, he nails us with, okay, now let's talk business. And he's like, what do you guys want to do with this facility? And I just unloaded because I ramble anyway. And I was like, we're going to set it up on the software. We've already got the contractor lined up that can come in and clean all the trash out. And then we're going to get the gate fixed. And these are the people I've called for the gate. Like, I just unloaded. And Josh is like, yeah, well, we're going to take care of this as far as the cameras. And then his guy that he had set up, like, we just hit him with, we knew what we were going to do. And he said, we knew more about that property than the guys they were signing the contract with before this all turned around.
The other guys it was their first facility. So,
and they didn't account for property management was their excuse for wanting to get a lower price on the property. So
that's crazy. Well, and that goes to show that he probably thought he was in a way selling you guys by bringing you guys into his winery and creating a relationship. But for me, that's exactly what I want. Like, I don't even want to talk about your facility. I want to talk about you, get to know you. And then you just build, you hate to say it, but it's true. It's a sales process.
Right.
And you're just creating trust and you're creating a relationship. And now you can negotiate, or maybe it's not even a negotiation where you're just like, yep, I'll sell it. Let's do it. Right. That's awesome. So how's that? Obviously, you guys took that deal down. How's that look now?
It's kicking ass
Great.
now.
Yeah?
Like it's crazy. Like we got everything cleaned out, and
We're
just a year later, right? Or not even a year.
Yeah, we got our first rental on Mother's Day of last year, and right now we're about 50%.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it died down like crazy over the winter. Like we did real good with, 8, 12, 15 move-ins last summer, throughout the summer, like the peak time. And then about November, it died.
Yep,
and I was like, oh my goodness, our payments. So our terms were no payments for 12 months and then interest only for the next 24. So we locked it on owner finance. So I was like, oh, the days are counting down to where we have to send out our first payment. And we were so close to the first payment, but we ended up with like 7 in February that moved in and then 20 in March. No. So it's just like and then this month, I think we're at 10 right now for this month already. Like they're just flowing. So we have cash flowed since the first rental. It's crazy. Like it's been just fine. And now we're still probably $2-3 grand in cash flow after everything. And our first payment just went out in April.
That's
so
awesome.
it is doing very well.
That's awesome. Well, welcome to Ohio. Cause we don't get rentals in November. Everyone moves out in November. We don't get rentals November, December. And then for me, at least, it seems like January people have extra crap or they're putting the Christmas decorations away and then it ramps up. So yeah, really quick, how did you guys structure that? Because obviously you did seller financing. Sounds like you structured it very favorably because it was empty.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a 3-year owner finance. The first year was no payments whatsoever. The following 2 years is interest only payments.
That's awesome.
And then we needed 300 down, so we actually had to pull that 300 from that because we had a couple houses that were free and clear that we did not want to touch. We knew we in our future wanted to be able to get out of our jobs. We wanted some cushion if something happened to where we ever needed to pull cash quickly. So we just didn't want to touch them. So we had those as fallback. We initially had a partner that was going to put down the full 300. And that went south a week before closing. Wanted to change the structure. Her attorney may or may not have messed that up. Wanted to change everything as far as an equity versus interest and partnership. And it was just stuff that we did not really know anything about anyway. So it made it even worse. So that was done. And then we came across half of it with another investor within the storage group. And then another investor that we actually met at
your mastermind in Columbus. So
that was the perfect timing ever. And to be able to get the trust of both people so quickly, within a week, we had the money and we were good.
That's awesome.
So done deal, took it down and set up good.
That's awesome. Well, and it goes to show, like, you guys started networking and meeting people. It's once you find a deal and it works, like, you're gonna find the money as long as you're out there networking. And I know you guys going through it, like, you didn't really know what you're looking at. I've never raised money. Like, I have no idea what I'm looking at. But you learn, right? So now for the next one, or if you do a next one, like, now the road is paved. Now it's going to be smoother sailing. You'll still have bumps, but you've got it more figured out.
Right.
The learning process.
Mhm.
Do you think you'll have any problems refinancing that? Are you looking to do that early or?
No, we're actually thinking about trying to figure out expansion before we do that. Cause as it sits, if we're sitting pretty within the next year, or 2, if we were to wait it out and not expand and everything, it should appraise between like 2.8 worst case scenario, 3.2.
That's awesome.
Kind of, yeah. So it was a big risk to take, especially for the investors pulling in a second position. But I think that literally the numbers are selling it. So we knew I could not let this one go. It was driving me crazy.
Do you think the seller wants out of, like, paid off, or do you think you guys could possibly renew it with them?
It was a father-son team. They actually had a feasibility and everything done through Copper before we had purchased it, and was going to do an expansion plus a apartment build out or townhouse build out or something in the back acreage. There was 38 acres there. So there was a lot of stuff going on that was already in the works. And the wife of the dad had passed away, and they stopped everything. So they pulled this money cash from their IRAs as a father-son team. I know that they want to invest in other things. Maybe it's something we can visit with one of them. It is something that we'll bring up and ask, because I'd prefer to pay them versus a bank all day long.
For sure.
But yeah, they pulled that as cash. So for them, they're really not making anything until we get that back to them.
Right.
Besides the interest, which we pulled it at a 5% for their interest only for the next couple of years. So at least they'll get, something coming back.
Right. That's awesome. Well, awesome story. I want to ask a question before we start to wrap up here. Obviously you guys have quit your jobs. You're financially free as of, well, it hasn't even been a year. How has that transition been? For both of you, I want to hear answers from both of you.
It's been a huge mindset shift for me. You're used to the grind of the W-2, and it's just like, it took me a lot to get up the courage to say, okay, yeah, we can do this. We'll be fine. Not having that cushion, that monthly or that weekly paycheck. But it's been great for me. I'm coaching baseball now, my youngest son, and I wouldn't have been able to do that, if it weren't for, being where we're at. So.
Yep, for sure.
I'm still trying to figure it out, which sounds ridiculous because you think you'd jump for joy and be all excited because you were done. I am excited. I cannot find a structure that I feel like I have to put things into my day if I have free time, because I feel like I should be doing something, like I'm missing something or missing out on what I should be doing if I don't do it. So, maybe it's just the chaos that's always going on in my head. I'm just a thinker. It's hard to be free and get away from the computer to look at another facility or check and see if everybody's paid their stuff or stay out of the bank accounts. I fill my time randomly with worthless stuff a lot of time. Or checking cameras, everybody says they, don't pay attention to their cameras. Well, I enjoy opening the camera and heck yeah, we still own all this. It's right there.
Yep.
So,
well, it sounds like too, you guys are kind of a good mix, right?
Oh, yeah.
Cause I also think that probably helps one for both of you. And like Michelle, I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs can relate and myself included, cause we are kind of all over the place. But at the same time, even though you're looking at your cameras, you have your hand on your business, right? I see way too many owners, especially in self-storage, are like, it's automated. I've got a property manager. They're just going to take care of it. No, they're not. You have to manage, even if you have a manager, and this is with anything, whether it's multifamily, storage, a business, whatever it is, you still have to manage something and make sure the machine is still turning the way it should be turning. So I find myself doing odd things at times too, where I'm filling time, but most of the time it's related to the business, and it's like, it's something that you should be doing because you're watching the business. So yeah, kudos to both you guys. It's awesome to see you guys progression and where you guys have come and where you guys are going. So we'll get into the questions that I usually ask. What's one thing as a team that you guys are better at than anybody else?
Man, I would say getting things done. Whatever we strive to do, we do it.
Yeah.
You know, no matter what it takes, we find a way to get it done.
It took us a bit at first to figure out how to not overlap each other. It took me a lot of keeping my mouth shut and just letting him do what he does. Like it, because it's not really that I want to question what he's doing. I kind of want to know a little bit about what's going on in case something that I'm working on correlates to it. So once we've figured out like, okay, cameras, electrical, and anything as far as the gate stuff, like he took that and ran. Yep. As far as the people, the software, getting the tenants dealt with, like calling, local businesses and mingling with them, like I do that. So we kind of just have a good mix, like you said, as far as manual labor versus paperwork.
Yeah.
At the same time. Oh, good.
Well, I was going to say I'm sure it was like starting new relationship over again, right? Now it's a business relationship, and you guys got to figure out who's doing what. And there's probably some push and pull, and I'm sure it's tough, but I mean, not even 2 years into it, sounds like you guys have it pretty much ironed out, which is pretty good.
Yeah. It's pretty great, especially with, you go from working W-2s and being occupied and then just come together as a family to do family things.
Yep.
We literally had to shift all of that around to be able to work it into family and work. Like we're still working for ourselves, but we still have to do it as a team. You can't do it alone. So it worked great.
That's awesome. So what's next for you guys?
Oh, another facility, maybe.
We're looking for another facility. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The second one took a lot kind of get hashed out. It's got commercial properties out front. So if you know any people that does restaurants or anything like that, we're looking for somebody to
there you go.
get it started back up. But
absolutely.
It's a little bit of maybe just we're kind of settled in with storage and know how it goes, and it's another safety net, I guess, just a different one than residential. But I really want to try to get into some sort of different commercial as far as industrial or something goes. Like we have all that land out back. We've talked to a lot of local developers and brokers that are kind of giving us a general shove into getting a hold of like the mayor and everything uptown and seeing about getting a road put in, because we actually intersect between a couple roads that can be joined on our property and then expand out and get into some commercial development. So
like light industrial center or something like that.
Which seems like a lot of work, but if it's something that we have a lot of help or grants in the process of trying to learn something like that, maybe we'll like it. Maybe we'll sell it. You never know.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. Where can people find you? Especially if they've got a restaurant they want to put in and up by Lake Erie.
That's a good question. We are both on Facebook now. Josh has his own Facebook.
All that. Josh now. On Facebook.
Doing big things.
But that's pretty much it. We don't really have anything as far as like an actual business or anything to get to besides our property accounts that's on there. But yeah, we just each have our own Facebook that we do different stuff with, and that's about it. Pretty simple, easy to manage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So guys, if you have any questions or want to reach out or or anything, they're on Facebook. Even Josh now, I think you're what, a weekend, 2 weeks?
I'm a week, big week. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big week. This has been awesome. Great show. It's been awesome to watch your guys' progression over the short, not even 3 years, 2 years, whatever it's been. Appreciate you guys and good luck in the future, and appreciate you guys coming on.
We appreciate you, man. I love the podcast. I watch it religiously now, which I wasn't a big podcaster, but yeah, I watch yours religiously, and you were one of the driving factors of where we're at today. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thanks.
I appreciate that. And you're going to make me cry at the end of the show.
We appreciate
All right.
it.
We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Take care. See you.
Thanks for following, subscribing, and listening to this episode of the Do More podcast hosted by John Farling. To learn more or ask questions, go to l4investing.com.